I'm going to tell you 4 guys that you need to go out and get right now because they're dirt cheap. Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I'm Garret Price, and I want to tell you about 4 guys that their ADP right now is extremely, extremely low. And the reason these guys are interesting is you have points in a lot of players' careers. Now, some guys like Justin Jefferson just always stay at the top. They're always incredible. CeeDee Lamb, always at the top. But you have guys that have kind of some ebbs and flows in their careers. And especially guys early on in their careers, if they don't perform exactly like you want them to right away, it's easy to just want to move on. Think of guys like Nico Collins and Kyron Williams last year. Guys that we had basically dismissed as mediocre players or busts. Well, they ended up being 2 of the best fantasy football assets for your teams last year. So let's look at 4 guys who have a very low ADP that could have a similar trajectory if everything goes right. Let's look at a couple wide receivers first. Let's start with Marvin Mims. Now, Marvin Mims last year, we kept talking about it. All we really want out of Marvin Mims is just to get rid of Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton, because when he touches the football, it's electric. Everything we're seeing on the field looks incredible. Now, he only had 1 game where he had over 5 targets. But any game where he got 2 or 3 receptions, he did huge things with them. We saw a game over 100 yards, several games with 40, 50, 60, 70 yards, where he would just make big plays every time he touched the football. He just didn't get enough opportunity. Now he's in line to be the number 2 wide receiver there and maybe even become the wide receiver 1, depending on what goes on with Cortland Sutton. And right now his ADP is actually below his teammate, Troy Franklin, who was taken in the 4th round. Give me the 2nd rounder all day over that 4th rounder. And not that there's anything wrong with Troy Franklin. It's just I think Marvin Mims is the far superior player. And we could see a guy like this go from ADP. Now, we're going to go with underdog ADP right now because we want to look at this year, not necessarily long-term, although all of these guys have low Dynasty Nerds long-term Dynasty ADP as well. But his ADP right now is 173. So we're looking at wide receiver 77. I think that is grossly undervalued. I think we need to be going out and getting as many Marvin Mims shares as we possibly can. Next up, we've got Calvin Austin. Calvin Austin is ADP, wait for this, 272, wide receiver 116. Now, the reason that I'm so bullish on Calvin Austin is, one, I remember really liking his tape. I thought he was a dynamic player, just maybe a little too small, but over the past couple seasons, that narrative has changed in the NFL, and they're allowing some of these small guys to be bigger parts of offenses. And he's going to need to be a bigger part of his offense. The only established receiving threat right now in Pittsburgh is George Pickens. And the report out of camp is he was the best looking one of the rest of the bunch. That includes names like Van Jefferson and Roman Wilson, which, yeah, maybe they have a little bit of upside. But I really am interested, especially at this price tag of ADP of 272, wide receiver 116. He's still young enough and dynamic enough where he could be a really big part of this offense. And let's not forget, early on in Tyler Lockett's career, he was a very different player than he is right now. If you look at what he did with Russell Wilson early on, some really big things, some really dynamic open field, kick return types of stuff. That's what you're going to get out of Calvin Austin. I think these two could be paired very, very nicely, and we could be seeing big things in 2024. Now let's get to the running back position. And look, some of these guys just didn't perform, didn't get the opportunity. Some of these guys just keep getting hurt, and that's J.K. Dobbins. And so if you're out on Dobbins because of the injury history, I get it. I understand. It's been absolutely brutal, but raw talent-wise, J.K. Dobbins is an incredible running back that we saw yards per carry-wise just dominate the NFL as a true rookie. Now, injury after injury keep piling up, and he's been shown flashes of what he used to be, but we haven't seen it over a long period of time just because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But despite all of that, he still is not buried on the depth chart. He's still with Gus Edwards, who he's always been ahead of on the depth chart. And the only other player with the Chargers that even poses somewhat of a threat is a guy like Kamani Vidal, who was 5th, 6th round pick. Nothing that's overly threatening if you ask me. So a player with that raw talent, that raw ability, with the opportunity that he could have this year, we could see him skyrocket in value in 2024. Oh yeah, ADP-wise for J.K. Dobbins too, ADP of 182, running back 56. Incredible value. Go get J.K. Dobbins now. Last but not least, let's go over to Tank Bigsby. Yes, Tank Bigsby, I know it's a little bit more of a heart pick, but I loved his tape coming out of Auburn. I thought he was a really dynamic running back that could do a lot in the receiving game and between the tackles. But we know that Travis Etienne had a monster year and he got a lot of touches. Well, that doesn't scare me off too bad because I like offenses where the main back gets a lot of touches. Because if someone were to go down, that means there's a good chance that Tank Bigsby, he would see a lot of the work. And they keep saying they want to get this kid more involved because they like what he has to offer and they want to make him a bigger part of the offense. I think we see that this year. And he's still behind guys like Tyler Algier, who is behind an all-world running back in Bijan Robinson. No chance of him getting work. Damian Pierce, who's behind Joe Mixon and was behind Devin Singletary even last year. I think Tank Bigsby's a much better back than both of those kind of guys and plenty of other backup running backs that he's behind at the moment as running back 64. Yeah, that's right. That means every team's starter and every team's backup for the most part is behind a guy like Tank Bigsby. I want a second chance at this. I think Tank Bigsby is a great value at ADP 206 overall and running back 64.